and all that. And I'm just glad to see how it's rose up in the past few years. And like I'm hearing about all these other schools that are doing musicals and reaching out and all that. And so definitely, I think it is growing. And I think schools are being inspired by other schools to start theater programs.
Ben Hosler, thank you for joining me today.
Hey, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
How are you doing today?
Oh, good. And how about you?
Not too bad. Currently, I'm actually out in the prop shed, and I'm realizing I have a bee problem out here, which is not good. So,
Oh,
yeah, that's always fun. Yellow jackets are showing up. Uh, but yeah, so tell us a little bit about how you got into theater and what made you, because I've never done it through high school. I was never into. The biggest thing I ever did was journalism in high school. So take us through the process of what really got you into the theater club and what made you love cinema.
oh, okay. Well, ever since I was little, I've just been infatuated with movies, and I would never sit and watch them. I would be there in like a costume, acting along with the movie. Like with Spider-Man, there's pictures of me in my Spider-Man costume, and like when it was during the train scene when they would carry him back and they laid him on the floor and his mask was off, like I would actually lay on the floor with my mask off and act with the movie.
That's
Like
cool.
with Star Wars, I always had my lightsaber and reenacted scenes. So I've always been into the acting side with films, but I've always wanted to make them. So I guess both of that have gone hand in hand. But with theater, in third grade, we saw a preview of the high school show, and they did Grease. And I had no idea that my school had a theater program. So that like opened up my eyes and was like, wow, this is so cool. So jump ahead a few years later, and like don't do much in middle school with acting. And freshman year, we have an activity fair where you sign up for clubs, and I knew right away I'm just going to do drama because like I love acting and that whole thing. So freshman year, I signed up and we did Les Mis for our show, which was very exciting because 8th grade I went through a Hugh Jackman kick because of the movie Logan, and Hugh Jackman's just one of my favorite actors, so I got listening to a little bit of Les Mis, and then little did I know that was going to be the show we were doing, so that was fun. And that was I was an ensemblist that year, and then from there I fell in love with theater. Then the next year we did Mamma Mia, and I scored a minor role, and that was another blast because I finally had lines and I just got to do a bit more of a character. And then this past year we did Little Mermaid, and I played Scuttle, which was just a blast because the character is just so fun and it just came naturally to me. So that's sort of my theater story. It's always been a natural attraction, and I'm glad I'm doing it because it's like living a dream.
Now, you can never have enough Hugh Jackman, I think. Well, because I'm biased because the Wolverine's my favorite superhero. But also, he is the ultimate, and I'm going to call him the Greatest Showman because ironically he was in the Greatest Showman, but he is one of the probably top theater and acting cinematic stars of all time.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So, I remember watching a play where you went to school, and it was, I think the last play I saw was Into the Woods. Were you a part of that one, or was that a little bit younger yet?
I was in 6th grade.
Okay, so
Yep.
okay, you were younger than that.
Yep.
Okay, boy, that shows how long it's been since. But it's interesting to see all the different theater programs growing up around here. You got one locally in, I'm gonna say Bloomsburg. You have one locally in Bloom, the BTE Theater Ensemble. Is that something that I don't want you speaking for your school, but is that something that you guys inspired to be, or is that just something that's kind of there that you guys would like to move on to? Some of you.
That's a good question. I think we just sort of tried to do our best performance. We look a lot after the Broadway performances on YouTube, and then we sort of add our own flair, and we just tried to do our best performance and sort of make it like professional theater. And I think we've done a really great job with it. I'm blessed to be a part of the program I am in school, and definitely BTE is great. And yeah.
When you're picking a play, do you guys have say as students, or does the teacher basically say you're doing this?
Uh, she does think about I well, she doesn't necessarily always say, but I think it does have to do a little bit with talent. Like for Les Mis, we had a strong group of singers, and you can't do Les Mis without a strong group of singers. And we had like ones that were in Teen Star that placed first and second that year, as well as going to PMEA All-State competitions. So Les Mis, it just wouldn't be the same without a strong group. So I would say, like, sometimes it does depend on the students for the show, but you never know.
Do you have any do you have any insight to what you're doing next year by chance, or you guys haven't thought that far ahead yet?
Our director likes to torture us sometimes when it comes to waiting for the show. Like last year, they joked we were going to do Sweeney Todd, and I was so pumped because Sweeney Todd's an epic story and an epic show, and then they were like, no, we're going to be doing Chicago. No, we're going to be doing Little Mermaid, Cats. And we're like, what the heck are they pulling on us? And it ended up being Little Mermaid. And this year what they're doing, because of this whole COVID thing, schools haven't been able to perform the shows, so they aren't sure whether they're going to stick with the show for next year or if they're just going to get a whole new show, because you don't want to pick Addams Family for next year and have 5 different schools in the area doing Addams Family. So we're waiting to hear what other schools are doing before we pick a show. But I definitely have my fingers crossed for certain ones, but you never know.
Okay, that's interesting. I never really thought about that. I guess you guys got to check with local schools in the area to make sure who's doing what. But how many, off the top of your head, how many schools do you know that have theater programs? Because when I went to Berwick, I don't even believe we had a theater. We had swing choir. We had, and this was back in 2014. I might be wrong. I just maybe never heard of it. But is that a relatively common thing for schools to have, or is this like a new growing trend when they start to see the stuff you put out? And because I know your school has been active in this probably well before Berwick has.
I think it definitely is growing. Like I was happy to see Berwick finally got a theater program, and they did a fantastic job with it. But I've never seen one of Bloom's shows, but I know they've been there for a while. Same with my school and all that, and I'm just glad to see how it's rose up in the past few years. And like I'm hearing about all these other schools that are doing musicals and reaching out and all that, and so definitely I think it is growing, and I think schools are being inspired by other schools to start theater programs, and it's something I just hope it will only grow more and more over the next few years, because the arts are important in schools, and I feel like that's something a lot of people can use to express themselves, not just theater kids, but like people who are big into athletics or more focused in like science, or just anyone can relate with art, whether it's music, theater, drawing, acting, you name it. And I feel like it's something that anyone can just relate with. So I would definitely want to see that grow for more schools to have, for more people to express themselves and possibly find out who they really are.
Now, we'll go back to the question prior where you talked about how about keeping maybe the same performance for this year. Is like since a lot of people didn't get to perform this year, so you want to keep it for next year. Is there a lot of struggle though in doing that logic with maybe you have a lot of seniors casted that are moving on? Is that more of a struggle, or do you think people know enough what's going on that they'd be able to just slide right into that?
It sort of depends, because sometimes you have a lot of seniors that fit the role. Like last year, we had a bunch of seniors that were perfectly casted, and you could not imagine anyone else in this role, so that would be a little difficult. But it is possible to learn a role, but sometimes it's just acting choices. You might want someone else, and now they're gone, and that's going to sort of be hard to fill in that shoe. Because it would sort of imagine like someone else playing Wolverine. You can only imagine Hugh Jackman. But it's hard to fill in that role. Like sometimes it's successful, like with Joker, like imagine Heath Ledger, and now you bring in Joaquin Phoenix, and you're like, oh yeah, that was a good match. It's sort of like that struggle. Like you can't just imagine someone else filling that role, but sometimes it works out. And I think that's what a lot of schools will be facing. And I hope it works out for a lot of them if seniors have to move on. And because when it comes to theater, you can only hope for the best performance among the schools, because it's, to me, I don't want to view it as a competition. I want to view it as like putting on the best performance. So that's all I can hope for, is that if seniors do move on and they're recasted, then I can only hope for the best.
Do you guys have friendly competitions between you and other schools when you watch their plays, or even in your own school? Do you have like friendly competition between different like cast, different actors?
Me and my friends joke about it all the time. All my best friends have either joined theater or I made friends through theater. And my one friend, he always jokes with me that we're going to be competing for lead roles next year. And that he's like, I hope I whoop your butt. And I'm like, hey, same to you back. And just all that friendly competition. And it's all good. All my friends are some of the best actors I know. So I enjoy that friendly competition, because I know whatever role they land in or whatever role I land in, then it's just going to be a blast for the whole drama season. But with schools, there used to be some with Bloom, because we would have like Bloom jokes and all that in our show. But I'm not sure if there is competition there anymore. I don't want to say. Don't. So.
You guys, are you dropping the mic? Are you saying you guys are that good that you're like, we don't have any competition?
Well, I don't want to.
No, go ahead. Go ahead and say it.
Yeah.
I mean, start it back up again. Hopefully people from Bloom hear this and be like, oh, okay. That's what he said.
Like, I don't want to put any school program down, because I know theater is an art that everyone works hard at. But definitely our program has flourished in the past few years, where we've sold out in a week, then sold out in a day, then sold out in 3 hours, all these shows. And it's something I want to see a school try and compete with. Like, I hope to see a day where there is a school that rises above our program, and then that competition comes back. But for now, it's sort of like we're sort of on top at the moment, and I'm very blessed to see it. Like, I'm at the zenith of our program, and I'm hoping maybe in the future some competition will arise, and I'm going to be really curious to see that. But for now, I don't want to put any program down.
No, it's all good, because being from Berwick, I have to admit, your school is the best in theater performances that I've seen for the past 5 years. Now, the Beauty and the Beast one for Berwick, what was it, last year, I believe? They did very good. Okay, I was very proud of them. I think everybody from that school, particularly, I don't know when they started the theater program, but they have succeeded in, especially their first sellout of what Beauty and the Beast was. But you guys still reign on top, and I appreciate you saying that. And I think competition is always good, no matter what field you're in, whether it's sports, whether it's theater. You always want to see schools and other people try to rise up to your level. Hopefully you guys can knock them back down again. But So take us through the first time you auditioned for a school play. What was it like, and did you mess up at all? Is there any funny stories?
So I learned you cannot procrastinate when it comes to auditions. For Les Mis, I was only supposed to do one song because I was auditioning for ensemble. I sang "Do You Hear the People Sing?" and I was not the best singer at the time. I still am not the best. I've been working on it this past year, and I have improved a lot. But so I didn't really prepare any acting either, because there were so many people auditioning for ensemble that that they didn't have ensemblists act. They were like, okay, you can leave once you go sing your song. I was like, okay, dope. So I did that after I sang, and I was just like a little nervous. It wasn't that bad, and I haven't really ever had a bad audition at school. So like last year for Mamma Mia, my acting audition went well, except I actually screwed up my lines and just messed up my one scene, but I guess it worked out. And same with my song. And then like this year for Little Mermaid, I started preparing all the way back in April of last year of 2019. And it was just Like, I just worked nonstop. I developed all these different characters for, like, Prince Eric, Triton, and then Scuttle wasn't until, like, the summer. I was like, oh, yeah, I can sort of nail this character. And it wasn't until this year I went in and sang Scuttle's song that I was like, oh, crap, I think I just scored that role. And so, yeah, so I would say those are my auditioning memories, but I haven't really had bad audition. Oh, except for dancing this year. I suck at dancing, and we were supposed to do a twirl, and I practiced it nonstop that day because they teach you right there on the spot, and I practiced it, and I had it down, and then during my audition, I slipped and fell during it, and everyone's like, no, Ben, that was perfect, that was such a Scuttle move, and I'm like, are you sure? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, I'll take your word.
Well, I gotta say, I've never been on stage. I've never acted in anything like that, and I can't dance either. So I kind of feel for you because I would probably do the same thing. I'd probably actually be worse. I'd probably be like, I'd probably get one of those serious roles, and then act out of character doing that, just falling on my face. I'd be like, I don't want to say because I don't look anything good, but I'd probably be like Prince Charming and like just fall flat on my face during the middle of the production, and that would not be good. But so tell us a little bit about what you plan to do in the future. Where do you want to take this, whether it's a theater career, and I know you're in the film and would like to make films. Where would you like to see yourself in the future?
I'm hoping to attend Liberty University. They have a great film and cinema production program, and I hope I can learn something from there. And I have connections to the History Channel because my best friend, his aunt is the vice president of the channel, and I got her phone back her phone number back during the musical. So I'm hoping to get in contact with her soon, and then hopefully just develop a connection so that way when I'm done with college, maybe I can work at the History Channel and just slowly work my way up to, I'm hoping to eventually working at Disney, either on Star Wars or Marvel, and just doing stuff that I love. So I'm hoping that's my plan for the future, but you never know with filmmaking, it can always take you into different directions. So
I mean, to have one connection is better than to have no connections. And a lot of people, and especially when you go through college, you'll meet new people, and it's amazing. When I talk about this, I was doing an internship up in Wilkes-Barre this past semester, and we're filming the new North Strand, and I'm just like, okay, well, I need a helicopter. And somebody on the internship's like, oh, I know somebody that has an air base. So I got in contact with them, and we were actually scheduled to shoot on an actual helicopter in late April. But, of course, that got postponed with the whole COVID-19 crisis. But, connections like that, now that's not necessarily a big connection. That's not like a studio connection. But those little progressions that you make are going to help you tremendously in the future. So if you had to choose one, would you rather be Kevin Feige of the MCU, or would you rather be Kathleen Kennedy of Lucasfilm?
That's a tough choice.
You can only choose one.
I would probably say Kevin.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, the MCU, they're on a high point right now, and I would just love to be writing that.
Do you think that it's going to now? I know we'll get off topic here a little bit. We'll talk about Marvel. We'll talk about Star Wars because this is being recorded on May the 4th. So happy Star Wars Day to you.
Yes.
But so, do you think, looking at the future of Marvel, do you think that we're coming off the high point, of course, of Endgame? But do you think that there's going to be some low points to start off the new Phase 4? I think it's Phase 4, if I believe. I don't know what phase we're entering, but Phase 4. Do you think that there's going to be some low points?
I think there will, because I mean, if you watch all of Marvel's MCU films, there are definitely some low point films. Like, I don't want to throw shade towards Thor: The Dark World, but I'm throwing shade towards them. that film was definitely a low point, but then, every now and then you get the good ones, like Captain America: The Winter Soldier. I absolutely love that, and I thought that was an amazing film. But I think they're going to be starting off strong with Black Widow, and I'm curious to see the other films. I think there's going to be some low points as we meet new characters. these uncommon heroes that we aren't familiar with, but I think we're going to fall in love with them like we have in the MCU, like with Guardians of the Galaxy. No one knew who they were. But with the acting choices and their direction of writing, they have created these heroes that everyone loves, that everyone knows. So I'm going to be really curious to see what new characters are going to bring in that we may not know. Like Shang-Chi, I'm not sure if you know who that is or not, but they're going to be doing a film on him, and they said he's supposed to be sort of like almost like Black Panther. I'm going to be curious to see that, and I want to know how they're going to make that character lovable, how we can relate with this hero that we aren't common with. So I think getting familiar with these new heroes is going to be the low point, but I think they're still going to have great writing.
Do you think that the high is going to get to the highest of Endgame, though?
You never know. I mean, with Marvel, they have thousands of stories to tell, and they can always create original ones. Like Endgame, it's loosely based on the comics. Like, there's no comic out there that exactly copies Endgame. So I think if they can create original stories mixed with the comics, then they could possibly top Endgame. And I'm going to be curious to see that in the future, how they're going to do it.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I just don't know if they'll be able to reach Endgame's hype, because I know, and this sounds weird, but talking to a lot of people around that aren't necessarily like into the big film community, you know, they don't pay attention to the 24/7 news, they don't follow a lot of channels, they don't, you know, look at all this stuff online. A lot of them believe, and this is weird to think this, but a lot of them believe that actually the MCU ended at Endgame.
Really?
So they didn't expect a lot of these Marvel films to keep coming out. Now, of course, you had Spider-Man, which will keep going because Sony and Marvel are two separate things. Yeah, what do you tell somebody that believes that it's over? Like, they're like, well, what do you mean? There's more to it. I mean, Endgame was like you witnessed the death of Tony Stark. Spoiler, but obviously, hopefully, you've seen it by now. It's a year later.
Yeah.
You have Cap moving on. You have all these. You had Black Widow who died. You had Hawkeye, which looks like he's going to go in the darker world. It looks like it. But yeah, what do you tell somebody that believes it's over?
Oh, it's only the beginning. I think it's lining up for a great future. And I think with Disney Plus, they're going to be releasing more content. And I'm hoping that maybe one day when I have kids, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, what are all these films? And I'll be like, son, let me sit you down and show you Iron Man. And then just lead them up from the beginning to 2030. That's accurate. But, yeah.
Now, how would you go? Because this is also one of those, and we could talk about Star Wars here. With what order would you watch Star Wars in, and what order would you watch Marvel in? Because there's people out there like me that I'll have you watch 4, 5, and 6 of Star Wars, the original trilogy. I'll have you watch the prequels and then the sequels. So I will actually make you stick to that order. But with Marvel, do you watch Iron Man, who came out first, or do you try to put like Captain Marvel, who started the Avengers Initiative? Do you then like try to put it in like timeline category, or like what do you what would you consider?
I think release date.
Okay.
Because as you're watching, you sort of have these mysteries, and then the later films solve these mysteries, all these little Easter eggs that you have. Like with Infinity War, with the end credit scene where Nick Fury drops the pager and you see Captain Marvel's logo, you're like, oh boy, what could that mean? And then you watch Captain Marvel and you're like, oh, this makes sense. And then that pieces that together. Or like you don't want to show someone Winter Soldier first and then watch Captain America, the First Avenger, because then you're like, Bucky, who's this Bucky? And then you watch First Avenger and you're like, oh, that makes sense. But you want to watch First Avenger first, so that way you get an understanding of Cap's relationship to Bucky and Winter Soldier. So I think definitely you got to watch them in the order in which they were released.
Yeah, I just find it hard to believe. Like, the Captain Marvel is the only one that throws me off. Now, I've never seen Guardians of the Galaxy, so you can try to pitch to me that later. But I tried to watch it the other day, and I just could not get through it. I don't know what it is about those two films. I just can't do it. But when it comes to Captain Marvel, to me, and maybe you can explain this, I don't know if you're into comics or try to read like what's going on between the scenes of the MCU, but if you have somebody as powerful as Captain Marvel, why was she never around for all the other wars?
Uh,
Like I find that
yeah.
hard to believe that she'd never come back to Earth during those like what 30, 40 years.
Yeah, I think the MCU hasn't set Captain Marvel in the best way, because I didn't like the Captain Marvel movie, but I'm also not a big Brie Larson fan either, so I'm not sure if they would have had a different actress player, then I maybe would have liked Captain Marvel a bit more. But definitely, I think they should have thought it through. They were going to introduce her in Age of Ultron, because there's a deleted scene where she's standing in the Avengers compound when, like, during the end where Cap says, "All right, Avengers," and they cut him off right before he says "assemble," and they show all the heroes like turning around, and Captain Marvel is supposed to be there. So I think they did have a plan for her, but it's just, I think as time goes on, they sort of have to ignore all that and write it into the future, because if you think about Endgame, they're like, because War Machine's like, he says to her, "So where have you been this whole time?" And she's like, "Fighting all yada yada yada," and she's like, could have used you guys in a lot of the battles." And it's like, okay, that makes a little sense, but still you'd want a further explanation. So I'm not sure what the explanation is for why she was away for as long as she had been, but I think it also had to do with the pager of Nick Fury, because I think that the pager was for like emergencies only. So he sort of knew that like the Avengers could handle New York and Sokovia in the past Avengers films, but during that one, half the population is just disappearing, then you might want Captain Marvel. So I think that's really what they wanted to bring her in for, was for the big emergencies.
Ironically, she didn't disappear.
Yeah.
That would have been a problem.
Yeah.
But so, what are some, moving on from Marvel and Star Wars for a little bit? What are some films that inspired you?
Usually Star Wars and Marvel have always been my huge inspiration, but definitely there's been a lot of movie musicals and musicals that I've watched that made me want to make my own versions of like my own short film musicals and all that, which actually I had one planned, but it got canceled because of this whole Corona thing. I was going to film it after drama season was over, so definitely a lot of musicals have inspired me to try and make my own version of the musical within film. But Indiana Jones has always been a huge inspiration to me. At one point, I wanted to be an archaeologist, because like Indiana Jones is just awesome. Why not be an archaeologist? Jurassic Park is another one, because they're just so epic. Diary of a Wimpy Kid. I love those films, and I still do. I think they're honestly some of the best films I've ever seen. But yeah, those are just a few of the ones that have inspired me over the years. The big ones that, like, the more well-known ones, I haven't watched until like this past year or so. Like, I didn't watch Forrest Gump until last year, but in like just over time, I've sort of honed in on this cinephile feeling, where I've just been watching films nonstop, famous, non-famous, just any movie I can get my hands on. So I think the big famous ones haven't come into my life until later, until a year or two ago, or a year or so. Definitely, like the big ones like Star Wars and the Marvel have always affected me since childhood.
Is there any films that you would recommend to people?
Oh, there's a lot. The main one I think people need to watch in high school is The Breakfast Club. That film pretty much nails high school to a T. If you can sit down and just talk with anyone, you can understand each other better. And I liked how they did that. Like, you have the brains, you have the bad, you have the pretty, you have the kooky, and you have the jock, all come together and just relate with each other. They talk about life. And I've had experiences with that where I've sat down and talked with people that I may not affiliate with. But I think that one just captures high school to a T. So that's one I recommend. Forrest Gump, I just love the narration for that. and just the story. The moment I watched it, it was like an instant favorite. It was just a phenomenal story. What's another one? I think those would be the two main ones, because all the other ones are like superhero stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But those are probably the two I'd recommend for that I think anyone could relate with.
Now I know we've talked before via Instagram and through text messages. Have you ever been a part of a short film? If you have, tell us the experience. If you have not, tell us a little bit about if you are more willing to make short films and like when you would like to try to start your career as an independent filmmaker.
I would say I've sort of have already. With my dad got me an iPad back in 5th grade, and around 7th grade I started making just little snippets with Spider-Man and all that. And it developed, or in 8th grade, through the CSIU, you can enter a 5-minute film into a competition. So in 8th grade, I got together with 2 buddies, and we filmed filmed a short film called On the Heel of a New Tomorrow. And it was sort of their idea of the story, because I didn't really know what to do, so they gave me a story, and it was about this kid who lost his leg, like this football player who lost his legs, and then through science grows them back. And I wasn't like real big on the story because science isn't sort of my thing, but I did it anyway, and it was difficult because you have this story and you can only fit it in 5 minutes. So that was my first time doing a little short film as well, acting with others. And then the next year, in 9th grade, I created my own superhero story about this. It was called Angus, and it was about this superhero who got bit by a cat with mad cow disease and got super strength. And that was another 5-minute film that I imagined this 2-hour film shortened to 5 minutes, and definitely another learning step. But last year, it was probably my biggest film that I did. It was called Cloudbreak. It was a spin-off of Angus, and that's probably been one of my more successful films, where I did a lot of special effects work, as well as I had a crap ton of actors. I didn't act in this one because I have a hard time acting in front of the camera, because I can't move the camera and get the angles that I want, the movement that I want. So I like to be behind it and film my friends. And that one was fun because I filmed it at my dad's office, and I had a crap ton of my friends come in, be extras in the background for the final battle scene. And it was an amazing experience. It was a lot of work, but it paid off in the end. It only got second at the competition, and I mean, I was a little upset because I put a lot of work into it. But what made me happy about it was when I posted it to YouTube, all my friends were very receptive to it. They were telling people to go and watch it, and in the morning after I posted it, because I posted it at midnight, it was just one of the greatest experiences of my life, just seeing how much people responded to my art, and I was very happy with that. And then my upcoming projects I had a project called Job 51, which was a mockumentary about what was going on at Area 51 in 1988. And I just love mockumentaries. So I've done a little bit of a practice with that for short films, because during drama season, we filmed my friend who played King Triton go out into public and pretend he was King Triton in all these different stores. And it was fun because I got practice with mockumentary filming, as well as a little bit with improv and understanding, like, oh, this angle looks good, this angle doesn't. So I had that in mind for Job 51, and I'm hoping in the future to create more short films. It's just difficult because I can't always be there with my friends, and I can't create stories just like that, because I want to have time to develop them and make sure they're the best they can be. Because with Job 51, I've been working on that idea since before sophomore year, and I'm hoping I can finally get it out there. So that's sort of my history of short films, and yeah.
Does your school at all, like, do they have a journalism program? Do they have an actual film club? Is that something you're looking into starting itself? Or does the school try to help influence filmmakers like yourself?
Uh, yes, we have a class called video production. At the time, when I was a freshman, only sophomores, juniors, and seniors could take it. They didn't allow freshmen. But because I told my guidance counselor this is what I want to do in the future, they're like, okay, yeah, you can take it next semester. So I took it my second semester, and a lot of the kids just took it because they needed like graduation credits and all that. But I was like, I don't want to sound braggy or anything, but I was like one of the best ones in the class because I've had practice with this and it's what I love. So I learned a lot from it because you learn about angles, you learn about doing little broadcasts, you work with a TriCaster, you edit with iMovie, and just from there's where I learned a little bit about filmmaking as well, and just the different angles, which I still use to this day. My principal was very supportive of me being a filmmaker because they would ask me to film all the graduates because they would go and walk through the middle school, the elementary school, and all that, and I would film it, and I have every year. Well, except this year. Unfortunately, I won't be able to do that, but I've had the pleasure of doing that. When we would have the 8th graders come over, we would have little introduction courses for them of what they can have in the high school, and my freshman year, my principal asked me to go around and film all the different activities going on, so that was fun. And every year I've helped out in the video production studio, introducing the students to our film program, and that's always been a blast because I get to tell them a little bit about what I've done, what you can do in the program, and just what you can do in the future with it.
Well, dude, if you can brag, go ahead and brag. I mean, there's nothing wrong with of course you want to steer clear of that line between conceited and humbled and like proud. But listen, if you can brag about your work, brag about your work. Go tell people about it. Go spread it to the community. And going along those lines, with the last question that I have for you, for your school or for anybody in general, what's something that you would say to them to pitch the idea of that they should become filmmakers or in the theater club?
I would say do this to inspire others. The reason why I've always loved filmmaking is that you sort of bring out this hope in people. Like Star Wars has always made me feel powerful. Spider-Man has always made me feel more than I am. Like it brings out that hope that you can do anything. And even through theater, like when it makes you get a performer's high when you're performing, and you just feel this hope, you feel excitement. And I think that's what I would tell anyone to become a filmmaker or an actor or a performer or just something in arts, that you can inspire others through what you do. And you can have an impact on them that you may not know you have impacted them. And that's really, like, I don't care if I win awards in the future. I don't care how much money I make. I just want it. My main goal is to impact others, to make them feel the way that I felt when I was younger and the way it's affected me. And that's and that's pretty much my main point when it comes to filmmaking and performing.